This Sunday, the Ravens will take on the Minnesota Vikings after having 10 days off and adding another talented edge rusher to their roster. But will that be enough to extend their win streak to 3? The Vikings may be 4-4 and last in their division, but as of right now, every team in their division has a record of 500 or better, and they just came off a big win against the Lions in Detroit. Naturally, with how this season started, the Ravens won't be underestimating any opponent for the rest of the season. But against this talented offense, and in particular, Minnesota's receiving game, the Ravens' defense is going to have to step up yet again. And as for the offense, they may have to go back to averaging over 35 points a game if Minnesota's offense proves too much for the Ravens' inconsistent defense. With all that said, let's get to it. Welcome in, everyone. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report, and today we're going to be talking about the Ravens' Week 10 matchup as they travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. There's a number of ways that the Ravens could come out of this game winners, and a few areas of concern which the Vikings could take advantage of. We're going to start out by looking at how the Vikings can take advantage of some of the Ravens' apparent weaknesses. The first and most obvious, in my opinion, is the Ravens' lack of ability to pressure opposing quarterbacks. The Ravens, of course, somewhat addressed this issue with one of their few signings before the trade deadline, bringing in Draymond Jones from the Titans. This move, though, merely replaces the loss of Odafe Oweh, who the Ravens sent to Los Angeles Chargers, and while Oweh has found success in LA, his lack of production in Baltimore will hopefully not be replicated by the incoming Jones. The real crux of the Ravens' pass rush woes this season, though, seem to stem from their lack of interior rush since losing Nnamdi Madubuike. This is an area that the Ravens unfortunately did not address before the deadline. So far this season, the Vikings' offensive line has not done well at keeping J.J. McCarthy upright in the pocket, where he's been sacked 14 times in just 3 games. However, with the Ravens struggling significantly this year in pressure rate and pass rush win rate, the Vikings' O-line may have an easier time with that in this matchup. Another area in which the Vikings may give the Ravens trouble is on defense, by getting third down stops and limiting scoring inside the red zone. Both of these areas are ones where the Ravens' execution, but more importantly play calling, has failed them multiple times this season. The Ravens aren't horrible at converting third downs, but they aren't a top 10 team either. And when it comes to scoring inside the red zone, they're hovering just above a 50% success rate, which ranks 23rd in the league. The Vikings' offense is not a model of consistency, but unsurprisingly, the Vikings have a much higher chance of winning if they can run the ball effectively against their opponents. This is evident with them winning each game that they've rushed for over 100 yards this season. The Ravens have certainly improved in their struggles against opposing run games, but for me, I'm going to need a few more games of keeping teams under 100 yards before I'm convinced. But the real test in this game will be how the Ravens' secondary handles the Vikings' talented receiving corps. Things look somewhat more promising over the last few games with solid performances at the corner position from Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, and Chidobe Awuzie, and even more promising, at least in the last couple of games, from the safety position with Hamilton in full all-pro mode, Malachi Starks making his presence known, and some serious impact plays from the newcomer Gilman. Whether or not this trend continues remain to be seen, and there are still going to be some issues in zone coverage over the middle of the field. Despite the fact that both Jefferson and Addison have been relatively held in check over the past couple of games, it's important to note that the Lions, Chargers, and Eagles are ranked much higher in pass defense than the Ravens are. If the Ravens have anything to look forward to with regards to the Vikings' passing attack, it's that so far McCarthy has yet to throw over 160 yards in a game, and it's thrown at least 1 pick in each performance. Unfortunately, the Ravens' defense this year has played the part of springboard or bounce-back opponent for several offenses. Let's just hope the Ravens' defense continues to improve and gives the first-year quarterback a difficult day. But now, let's get into some of the areas where the Ravens could find success up in Minnesota. The first and most obvious is, of course, the consistent MVP level of play from Mr. Lamar Jackson. Naturally, after missing 3 games, Lamar just comes back in and immediately has a 4-touchdown, 0-turnover, 143.2 passer rating performance. Naturally. Lamar remains the perfect example of, if he plays, we always have a chance, but at the same time, if the offensive line continues to struggle in both pass blocking and run blocking, there's really only so much that even he can do. The same can be said for the Hall of Fame running back next to him. The Ravens were able to wear down the Dolphins, and Henry was able to go off in the second half after a fairly forgettable first half. The run game is where the Ravens could really do some damage this Sunday against a Vikings defense which is ranked 20th in the league in total rushing yards allowed and 16th in yards allowed per attempt. But even this ranking is not truly indicative of the Vikings' run defense, which is all over the place from a production standpoint. In 5 games, they've allowed 100-plus yards rushing, and even 2 games where they've allowed over 200 yards on the ground to opponents. However, in the other 3 games, they've allowed 65 yards or fewer in the run game. And it's not even as though they won every game that they held opponents under 100 yards, nor lost every game that opponents went over 100 on them. At the end of the day, the Ravens are a run-first team, and regardless of who is running the ball, Henry, Lamar, Mitchell, or even Andrews up the middle, it's in their best interest to block well in the run game and move some guys around on the other side of the line. And when it comes to the receiving game, the Ravens seem to be going with the same approach that they had last year, which is to say they are force-feeding Zay and Andrews and nearly forgetting about guys like Bateman, Hopkins, and Likely. Devontae Walker doesn't even seem to be on the team, even though he has a 100% catch rate for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. But at least they're involving Charlie Kolar more. The Ravens have the ability to spread opposing secondaries incredibly thin with so many talented pass catchers, and if Lamar is actually given time to throw from the pocket, we could see how versatile this offense could be on a more regular basis. Before the Vikings' Week 6 bye, their defense was allowing an average of only 157.6 passing yards per game. After that bye, though, they've allowed 256 passing yards per game, nearly 100 yards more per game through the air. This is notable and definitely something that the Ravens need to take advantage of. This game feels like one where the Ravens could get out ahead by a couple of scores and simply control the clock and pace with the ground game. Or they could let the Vikings hang around and let them test this secondary in the fourth quarter. If you know the Ravens, even before this year, you know that that's a bad idea. The Ravens need to get a lead and keep their foot on the gas all the way until they're at least a quarter mile beyond the finish line. For my offensive breakout performer of the game, I think the Ravens rely on their running attack in this one, so I have Derrick Henry leading the way with over 100 yards and a pair of touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the pass rush comes to play, and both KVN and Green get a sack on McCarthy. This game could prove to be a challenge for the Ravens, but with how well this team plays against rookie quarterbacks, the improvements of the defense, and the presence of Lamar Jackson in this offense, I think the Ravens take full control of this game and win in convincing fashion, 35-13. If you guys enjoyed and missed these pre-game previews, go ahead and give the video a like. Subscribe if you're new around here, and put your score predictions or thoughts on the matchup down in the comments section below. And as always, guys, stay safe out there, and go Ravens.